Welcome to the Rapport Advantage Podcast, transforming the way leaders communicate. Here's your host, Alex Swire-Clark.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Alex, how are you?
How are you, Liz?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
It's a dreary day, but we're going to let the sunshine from our inner soul light the way today. Okay,
yes, we are.
That was, I don't know where that came from. But anyway, that's a fun way to start a podcast. So welcome to the Rapport Advantage Podcast. We're excited to have you with us today. If you haven't listened to our podcast before, we are here to help you break down the walls of miscommunication, increase your emotional intelligence, and build better relationships in the workplace and beyond. And as Johnny said, I am Alex Swire-Clark, CEO, speaker, and certified human behavior expert.
And I'm Liz Parker, certified behavioral analyst, strategic growth consultant, and I tend to focus on job benchmarking, and I call myself a whiz.
That's right, you are a whiz. And you're also a Vistage chair.
I am a Vistage chair. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm the third Vistage chair in the Greenville, South Carolina area now.
That is awesome. And if you've never heard of Vistage, go check it out. For all you CEOs and upper-level management people out there looking for a good peer group to bounce ideas off of, get feedback from, it's a great place to be. And reach out to Liz if you're interested in that, if you're in the upstate. So there you go.
Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome. This show is all about you, not you, Liz, but it is about you, but it's more about our listeners. So we're wanting your input and feedback. Give us that feedback on Facebook at The Rapport Advantage, on Twitter at Rapport Podcast, or visit the website at rapportadvantage.com. You can also visit my personal speaking website at alexswireclark.com. We'll mention that a little bit later in the show with some of the show notes and graphs and documents and things that you can pick up there, some extra resources for you when you're dealing with personality profiling and all of these emotional intelligence issues that we're bringing up on these podcasts. Our disc thought of the day is going to put Liz back on the spot. She's one for one. If you missed our two episodes ago, we throw out a disc quote or a quote about human behavior or about the human personality and see if Liz can narrow down the list of candidates of who might have said that and to what personality style they were speaking from or to. So that's generally the goal for this particular thought of the day. And we'll see how Liz does. She just absolutely totally nailed it last time with only one small, tiny little hint. I'm sure she's going to do great today. So,
I better get a hint today, guys. This is like a big wide world.
It's okay. Well, we'll give you some like Jeopardy, like bing, potent potables or something like that. Okay, so our just thought of the day is you cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today. You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today.
Okay, so I'm going to break down my analysis and we'll start from there just so you can hear the thinking that I go through for you and the listeners, just to see if I'm tracking with where you're headed. So first thing that I pick up is escaping responsibility and evading. Accountability hits everybody. So accountability isn't the one I'm going to focus on. I'm going to go to evading. So people who don't like maybe dealing with things, maybe they don't like conflict, maybe they don't like things, tends to take me to an S category. So someone who is more methodical, who's steady, but doesn't want conflict. So am I on track with an S person so far?
Yes. So I believe that this gentleman was speaking to that high S population of the world in terms of avoiding problems that this great nation was facing at the time.
Oh, okay. So I am going to go with the president.
You're on the right track. Keep trucking.
I was looking for some visual clues from you, Alex. Okay, so on the right track. So I've got two presidents in mind. First one I'm going for is Roosevelt.
That's close, but you got to go further back in history a little bit.
Oh, further back. Gosh, Lincoln?
It was the great Abraham Lincoln who said this quote. Yes, so Liz Parker, yet again, 2 for 2, with minimal hinting, as usual. This is why Liz gets paid the big bucks, and this is why Liz can come into your organization and be able to read people and understand and be able to analyze and then make you a great plan for success in your organization. So this is why she gets paid the big bucks, people.
listen to you, Alex. This is the same thing you do as well. So I just want to point that out.
Eh.
But man, that president one, that was pretty good. That's a thinker.
That's a thinker. And he was a big picture guy and a great thinker and a soft-spoken but yet motivating style. So Lincoln was great. So many biographies on him, and just such a wonderful example of how you can continue to fail over and over and over and over again and ultimately be successful in whatever it is that you set your mind to.
Boy, and I think just point out also being that high S, he's extremely humble. So he never, ever, he let the team, he let his people around him, he let everyone else kind of come to him. And then he made the decisions as he was comfortable with those decisions. So that humbleness is really part of the charm of who he was.
Very humble man, very humble man. So excellent job, Liz Parker, 2 for 2. Great stuff.
Thank you, Alex.
I guess we're going to have to increase the difficulty.
Don't you dare.
Or as we say in the gaming world, we're going to have to level up a little bit and face some challenges. So, but
your turn next week.
Oh dear, that's gonna be an epic fail, as my little soundboard would say, which we don't have today because we have children who steal things from their father, every once in a while, and so technology goes missing. Can't imagine why, as they're FaceTiming their friends. But anyway.
Sounds like an organizational issue you might need to address.
A home-wide organizational issue. Nice segue, Liz. As we get ready to talk about our main topic today, which we kind of kept you in the dark on with a little bit of a little stretch. We said we're going to talk about personality dynamics today and other things. Where we're going to talk about organizational conflict and where are your trouble spots. So looking at your organization, whether you have an organization of 2 or 2,000, we all have those conflicts that happen from time to time. Workplace conflict, and we're talking about conflict between team members. We're talking about conflict between supervisor and subordinate. We're talking about C-suite possible conflicts. So we're going to dive into that a little bit today and trying to determine where are the biggest trouble spots that you're going to have so that you can, A, address them, B, avoid them, and understand that conflict in and of itself is not bad. Just want to make sure we are clear about that. Conflict in and of itself is not bad. The best growth in organizations comes through conflict. It's the unhealthy conflict that we're trying to eliminate when we're talking about he said, she said, name-calling, explicatives, hurt feelings, making things personal instead of issue-oriented when we're talking about discussions. So trying to prevent those types of unhealthy conflict is what we're all about in today's episode.
I think that's a very good distinction, too, as we look at that, because that healthy conflict really creates that innovation and that creativity once you can harness it. So we're looking at the stuff that's toxic.
That's correct. How to address it, how to avoid it, how to prevent it, how to deal with it once it happens. Those are the kind of things we're going to kind of start dipping our toe in the water on today's episode. So when we're talking about conflict, and you have the graph, or the disc graph in front of you, the D's, those dominant styles in the upper left-hand quadrant, I's in the upper right-hand quadrant, S's in the lower right-hand quadrant, C's, your cautious styles, in the lower left-hand quadrant. Today, we're talking about what's the biggest potential problem when you're looking at where people are in the quadrants. So, Liz, you and I have both seen this firsthand. What is your main one that you see most often?
Well, it's usually the D's with the S's, because what happens, and I've got D is my second highest one. So I've got about an 80 of a D. And as I kind of think about how we are as supervisors and how we are in that kind of role, we're very direct. We want our way. We're to the point. And it tends to, that's our natural behavior. We are clear. It's just no doubt in our mind. We don't want the time to have to sit and, make sure you're okay. We don't want to take care of you emotionally.
Aww.
We just want to jump in there and just get the darn results. That's what we're after. And so when the D is working with an S, that S is just so much more supportive, and they will do whatever the D says. But what it tends to do is the D becomes very, very dominant when they're around an S. They have to be very careful not to overpower that S style. And I think that's one of the biggest probably pitfalls a D has, is they have to back off that big D in order to work with all the staff.
Yeah, they fill up the space, so to speak. So they keep pushing and pushing and pushing as a high D until that S either shuts down emotionally or has just a one moment of courage and pushes back a little bit, and that sets that boundary. But that boundary tends to be very close to that S, and so they don't really have that comfort zone that they would normally working with maybe some of the other styles. So that D will push and push and push and push until there's a little bit of pushback, and then there's the give and take from that point on. So that's a great point. Great point.
That's right. That's right. So other thoughts you have about that from the S standpoint going to the D when they have to actually do that?
I sure do, and as the high S in the room, I am that supportive, sincere kind of person. I'm always looking out for the other people that are involved in the process. So when I'm dealing with a D, and we've got several Ds in our organization, I understand that they're going to be that direct, get the stuff done. So when I'm communicating with them from a supervisor to a subordinate role, or
CEO.
Yeah, exactly.
CEO in solar.
That's correct. That's correct. So when I'm speaking to them like that, I tend to be very brief in my communication. And so normally I'll be like, hey, how's your day going? Here's this thing like that. Please let me know what you can do. Looking forward to blah, 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 blah. Versus the D's, I'm like, this needs to be done by 7 p.m. tomorrow. We good? And that's how I leave it, because that's how they communicate. If I give them all the fluff, they're like, dude, where's the meat on the bone here? Just cut me out all of the unnecessary detail. So when I'm supervising them, when I'm coaching them, when I am doing a review with them, let's say an annual review, it's going to be very, very detail oriented and very fast. So versus if I'm dealing with another S, I might take 30 minutes in there and point out, here's some of the things we can work on, and here's how we're going to do it. With the Ds, I'm like, here's your chart. Look at it for 30 seconds. And we wait, and they're looking. I said, you got any questions? No. Okay, well, here are the areas of improvement I see. Do you agree? Any feedback? Nope. Pew, we're gone. And then it's 5 minutes, and we're out. They know, they see it, the details there. Here's how I can change, improve. Bam. And then they go, and they're going to do it. And if they don't, they know that that's on them. Versus, dealing with some of the other styles, we'd have different strategies. So.
Yeah. And in fact, I just want to mention one other piece of that, and that is that in that position, D's carry not only a lot of space and hold the room that way, but if they also have the position as that supervisor, it can really put an S in some stress. And I think that's probably an important thing to note. So that's a big piece of it when you're looking at an organization and the positional power. That's
a great point, because the S timeline to getting a project done is going to be a little bit longer naturally for them, versus the D timeline, which is what is the shortest distance between 2 points. There is no up and down going around. It's just, I'm going A to B as fast as you can get there. Just give me a product. As you said, Liz, it's all about results for them. Same with the S's, they're going to get the process done, and the result will be there, but it has to be in their own time.
And I think that leads us right into looking at how we work together as teams as well, because you were saying as you look at projects. So as I'm thinking about a D being on a team, working with S's or other styles as well, but we're just looking at that dynamic right now between the D and the S. The D is still going to try and be the team leader. They're still going to be trying to push. And part of a team dynamic is being able to take all the styles together, but really hearing from the S's. Because the D's are more extroverted than the S's are, the S's get their energy from their own brain, where the D kind of gets their energy from being around people. They actually think in different lengths of time. It takes different amounts of time to come up with those same ideas, and very quality stuff can come out of this S-D relationship if the D will wait. So it's important for the D to understand they've got to back off in that team dynamic as well. Otherwise, they overpower the rest of the group.
That's right. And a lot of times when an S is put in a position to deliver a product, service, whatever, an end result, as an individual, they feel that internal pressure that much more. But because they're so cooperative in nature and because they're so team-oriented, if a D will put them in position so they can work with someone else and they can ping-pong ideas back and forth of each other, they're supporting each other, the end product not only changes to a more positive outcome, but there's less stress, there's less of turnover because the S can't handle that style and they just up and leave or they walk out. You get more buy-in, you get more culture, positive culture from that type of style and setting up your workflow in that way.
Yeah. And what I just realized is in that team dynamic, if the D is a smart D, they should know the S is the team player. And being able to do just what you're saying and set that S up for success that way makes the whole team more successful because a D doesn't naturally bring that group dynamic to it.
That's right. So as an S leader of a team, I'm going to put the D in charge of something. I don't care how big or small it is, but let them own something and take charge of it. So if we've got a 5-pronged project, I'm going to put D, let's call him Danny the D. I'm putting Danny the D in charge of number 2 or number 3 or both of them. Say, okay, Danny, it's yours. Run it the way you want to. Give me feedback at the end of the week. Give them enough details so they can check in and be held accountable, but put them in charge of that project and let them go. And they'll get it done. Now, again, you have to worry about collateral damage, and that's where coaching comes in. When dealing with others, but they're going to get it done. Come heck or high water, they'll spend 20 hours a day making sure that project is done, high quality, committed to results. So I will let them play, to use a metaphor, I'll let them play in their own sandbox and get that done, and then I'll have the other team members who are a little bit more cooperative in nature, who are at least open to working in teams a little bit better. I'll let them have the opportunity to work together and produce products or services or whatever the end result is, and do it in a way that's more comfortable for them, a little more laid back, a little less intense, and that way they'll be committed to success, and they tend to flourish in those environments.
You just caught on to something that I think that we could take on with the rest of this conversation. Danny the D really does help to think through that. So as we start to look at this next piece and we're thinking about how the I's with the C's end up, they're diagonals. They end up having issues is not issues. It's more energy to work with the other style. And as you start to look at that, maybe Isabel's our I.
Is he the I?
Izzy the I. See, I think we're onto something. So can I talk a little bit about Izzy the I and how she is in a supervisory role?
Absolutely.
Well, I think of it because, of course, being the big I, I'm 100 on the I scale. So as a supervisor, I'm all about really being impulsive. And I want kind of some spontaneity to come into my management style. But I also know that because I'm so optimistic, I look for, the sun to shine from everyone. And so I believe everybody can do everything. So as I'm working with a C, I'm going to get fluffy. I'm going to probably be more surface than maybe a C might like. And I'll let you talk about the C in a minute. But the I's are all about, we can do anything. Our optimism is so strong that we can manage this team. We can be the best team ever. We are going to be excited about this group, and we are going to have the best of us shine, and we're going to have a good time while we're going at it. So as we go through that, C's, on the other hand, might not view it that way. So tell me how the C's might view it, Alex.
Yeah, and that C role, and again, our director of operations is a very, very high C, 100 on the scale of 100, high C. So she is extremely cautious, very calculating. From their perspective, entertainment value, that's not a big deal for them. They want to have that question answered. Why? Why are we doing this? Why is this going to be better than what we're doing now? And so if you're leading them, you've got to give them facts. You've got to give them supportive detail to get buy-in from them. So if we're making a new initiative for 2018, we want to have this done by end of Q2, and here's what our plan is. We're trying to get to 20% growth in this particular area. Here's how we're going to get into whoa, wait a minute. Why are we doing this again? There's your high C question. We're doing it because A, B, C, D. And we're going to put up on this PowerPoint. Okay, let's look at slide 7. As you can see here, we have this negative area of growth over here, and then we're going to add this new line of services here, and so on and so forth. And so when they get the facts, they're, okay, all right, I'm with you. Okay, 2 plus 2 is 4. Got it. Okay, makes sense. Boom. And so your logic becomes their logic. And so once you've got that, the buy-in is pretty much from then on very steadfast.
Well, and the production also comes out of them. As a high I, we tend to, unless you've got a little bit of C in you, but the high I's are very low on detail. And so we don't speak in detail enough for those C's to even know what they should be doing for us. So if we can adapt as high I's to that C's need, we'll have a much better product or a much better outcome if we will just manage that way. So I think you bring up a really key point. You got to give them the why, and you've also got to give them the details so that they can understand it.
And in that leadership role, when they're dealing with I's, it's very tough for them because they want to focus on numbers and facts, and the I's are just trying to make sure that we're all having a good time with that. So they have to learn to smile a little bit. They have to learn to be able to tell a joke, or make the room feel at ease, because otherwise, as we've said in previous podcasts, those C's can be cold. And so they walk into the room, there's not a lot of energy, that kind of straight-faced mentality. The I's think, oh my gosh, what's wrong with them? Did their cat die or what's going on? But we don't know, but that's just their normal way of doing things. They're very, very serious about things. And when they're in work mode, it's all about detail, 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 and give me a why. Talk to an engineer, talk to someone in the sciences. They are very, very focused on any type of situation where you're walking in, they're looking at a room, they walk into a restaurant, and they're like, I think I can improve this process because I've had to wait 6 minutes on this meal. Last time I waited 5. The next time I'm waiting 10.
True.
Oh, my God. Okay, here's what we're going to do. And they start taking out the napkin, and they're scratching stuff down. I'm like, dude, do you want an appetizer? I mean, because I hear the potato skins are off the chain, yo. And they're like, wait a minute, dude, I'm working over here. Just order what you want. So they take that into every situation. They're always looking at process improvement from that leadership standpoint, and not necessarily focused on the people, but how can we make the process better, not necessarily how can we make our people better. And so in a supervisory role, that's something that they have to be mindful of, but that's where they lead from. They lead from that strength of facts, facts, facts. And that's great. That's great. I mean, if the facts aren't right, then you've got flawed processes.
Well, and just to look at how it works, if you're okay for me to move on to teams.
Sure.
As I look at how it works in a team, as a high I, the value that a C can bring to me as a team member is the fact they can bring me a little structure. But as a high I, if I'm working in a team, I'm always about the party first. I'm all about the people. I'm about what the experience is. And I want to make sure that the team gets that experience. But the structure does tend to not be there for us as high I's. And so as you work with those C's in those teams, it's really important to try and figure out how to communicate with them in such a way that the best of both worlds creates an amazing product, because that I is going to have a good time at it while the C has the structure. So as a team leader, or as in the team dynamic, not even as a team leader, but in the team dynamic, we have to not be, I's, it's all about me. So I want to be the center of attention in that team anyway.
Don't we all?
Back off.
I'm totally with you, Liz. And the analogy I use with my team, because I've got a lot of high C's in our organization, is the C's build the box and the I's decorate the box.
Oh, they bedazzle it.
That's right. We're putting bling on this thing. There's going to be fur on one side. Oh, we're going to have sparkly stickers on this side. And it's going to be fantastic. So you guys do your thing over there and you build it and make it all functional and whatnot. And that's great. But we're going to bling it up. So, and that's, if you can get that within your role. And again, it goes back to benchmarking, Liz. It all goes back to putting people in place on the team for those roles, so you don't have an I sitting there trying to build the box. Because there's the detail's not there. They're just going to be bored or disengaged or angry.
Fail.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a fail. So put them in positions where they can use their talents and where they normally flow from. So that's when we're talking about that C to I. Include those I's in your process. They don't necessarily need to be involved in the factual part, E equals MC squared. They're not necessarily interested in that, but what color is the ink going to be? Can we do a pink E? How cool would that be? And then the little M would be kind of cursive this time, and the C would be kind of a green. Maybe we could do disappearing ink. Wouldn't that freak people out? So just that mentality of, not that all I's are all about fun all the time, but it's got to be engaging to a degree, or you're just not going to get buy-in.
Yeah, That's so true. And just thinking about that and talking about that just gets me all excited just because I'm like, different colored font and different serif on the font. Ooh.
That's right. It's got to be cool. I mean, if you go look at my PowerPoint presentation sometime, or if I come speak to you, you'll see that we're using different color fonts. We're using pictures of people. It's crazy. We got sound effects going, and it's got to be entertaining for those folks. But intermingled in that are the facts, the meat, the reasons why we're here today. What are you trying to get out of this to make sure that all of those styles are addressed in that first 2 to 3 minutes of your talk, so everyone's engaged at their level. And so I think that's a great point to make about anytime you're doing presentations or working with others, is that you've got all of those styles in the room most of the time. So use these tidbits to engage people where they are to get that buy-in early, and that way you don't have that phone syndrome that we talk about where people start checking out.
I think that's great. Well, so let's move on to the D's, because again, D's, it's my way. I want to talk about what happens if you get a bunch of D's that are all in that same quadrant, and that can be a potential trouble spot. So as we think about D's being in that same quadrant, what ends up happening, if you think about that direct style, they want to have it their way. It's my way or the highway. It's one of those where they don't want to listen to another D because they think their ideas better, and it defaults into that too many head chefs that are in the kitchen and everybody's trying to create the recipe and they want to be the one that's in charge of the whole thing. So when you get too many D's working together, in fact, we do an exercise in both of our workshops that we do where we have them separated out. It's always funny to watch the D's because you have like 4 or 5 D's that might be there and none of them are really talking together very often. They're kind of off building their own design in the corner away from the other D's. And then if they see a design, they might jump on and try and co-build, but usually they want to be in their own space. And that's what ends up happening.
That is so true. And I was going to bring that same point up, is that your object is to, let's say, put these stickers on a wall in a certain order, a certain way. And all the other teams are working. They've got one line of stickers that are one thing. And so the D's have like stickers all over the place. So I've got my little pile of stickers, and give me these, and you've got more than I do, and mine's going to be better, and I'm going to win, and you're not going to. So it's very funny how they are just so, as to be outgoing as they are, which they are. How when they get task focused, it's all about me, and I'm right, and just punch people out of the way if you get in my way because I'm going to win. I'm going to make this the best.
It's true.
Whatever. Yeah. So.
You don't have to worry about who's in the way. You don't care.
No, something will be done. Now, whether it's any good or not, who knows? But it's going to be done in a some kind of way. But it will be done.
That's Danny the D for you.
Danny D. That's right, Danny D. Now, those I's and S's, they tend to be okay. We don't spend a lot of time talking about conflict within those particular quadrants. I's work with S's easily, S's work with I's easily, and they work within their own quadrants very well. S's are supporting everyone, doing those activities, trying to help. S's big problem when they're all in the same room is just getting them started. If you can just kind of prime the pump a little bit, then once they kind of get going, then it's like a train. They're all choo-choo. They're all on the same page.
And they do work well together.
Absolutely. S's are, again, you just basically just light the match on the thing and they start and they will go. The I's, they go from the first moment, but there's not a whole lot of organization in it and they're easily distracted. So the sticker analogy a minute ago for the D's, they're trying to make their longest line of stickers or whatever. The I's are like, wait a minute, what if we did like a snake? And who's got a marker? I mean, we could be the Green Snakes of Death. Hey, that could be like our team name, Green Snakes of Death. And so get in. Hey, yo, woo, yo, on the other side of the room, focus. We got to focus. Bring it back.
They're going to make their own rules in the process.
Exactly. So bring it back, and it's not. There's no malintent or anything like that. It's just they just come up with this. Well, you didn't say we could. Well, you're right. I didn't say you couldn't. So they tend to be really good outside the box thinkers, but sometimes you got to throw them back into the box when they get off task a little bit. God bless them. But there's typically not too much in the way of negative conflict. A lot of off track or slow to get started on the S's. Yeah, off track on the I's. But the C's, let's talk about those folks for a little bit. C's, we talked about that in a previous podcast. They have to be correct. They are going to always be, it's this way. But what? No, it's this way. So there's only one way to get from your house to the grocery store, and you got to go that way every time. I don't care what Google Maps says about traffic. I'm sorry, but this is the way we go because this is the most efficient way. So because that traffic is going to clear up by the time we get there. Just trust me. So they're all about that devil in the detail, and they're going to have to be correct. So if you get two in the same room, one person
what
thinks
happens?
One person thinks they're correct. The other person thinks this is correct. Now we've got oil and water. Now we've got rams butting heads, like you see on the National Geographic videos, or David Attenborough. Here we see the rams about to butt heads, and they're just always going at it. Not because they're aggressive, because again, normally they're reserved. And so, but when it comes to my logic is better than your logic, they're willing to fight for that, and they're willing to and get down to the trenches. So it's all about making their point so that their logic wins out.
And that I want to ask you a question about that, because you do work with a lot of C's. And, if they use logic and facts as their basis, why would they not agree?
Well, they wouldn't agree because their perspective also plays a part in their practice. And so what I mean by that is we've had people in leadership positions and people that work for us in our teams that have said, well, back when I used to work at X, we did it this way. Well, and that process worked for them in that particular scenario. And so they're trying to apply that scenario to our organization. Well, our organization does it like B. We do it our own way. So they try to fit that process, and we're all about that square peg in the round hole syndrome again. Mm. And so at that point in time, you've got to pull back, and depending on your C, who it is, a lot of times they're going to be thinking that we've got this process, we have to follow the process no matter what. And so when that happens in situations where they're working with other C's, you have to understand that there's got to be some flexibility in there, and sometimes you've got to add the human element to a situation, and they tend to struggle in that area because that's not how they're wired. They're task, not people-oriented. So being able to apply that position to a whole bunch of C's, they're like, well, we're going to follow this process this way, and that's just the way it is because somebody wrote a process, and by gosh, it made sense, and I buy in, and that's the way it is. Well, what about this exception? There are no exceptions. Of course there are. And so that human element is something that we rely on the S's and the I's to kind of interject on that side of the graph because they can miss out, those D's and C's can, but C specifically.
And that seems to be the whole reason why you want multiple styles on your team, because you can pull on that. You do not have to have all the answers.
That's right. The
NAD needs to be corrected.
And that balance is very, very key as well. That D can be checked, the S's can be pulled along, the I's can be wrote back in, and the C's can be, come on, guys, let's have a little bit of life and a little bit of fun. That was a good joke. You can laugh. And so we all have our struggles and our strengths. And so it's a matter of the great leaders maximize those strengths and minimize those weaknesses of those folks on their teams.
That's a great wrap up right there. Nice summary.
All right, so that was a wrap. Sweet. I don't want to add anything to that. So that will do it for today's show. I'd like to thank Liz Parker for joining me today. Liz, how can folks get in touch with you?
If you would, I'd love to hear from you. If you will email me at liz@ltresults.com or visit my website at ltresults.com.
Excellent. To get in touch with me for assessments or speaking engagements, anything like that, visit me at therapportadvantage.com. Also, my website, alexswire-clark.com. You can find me there as well. If you're interested in finding out about your style, the styles of the folks in your organization, you can visit our website, click on the Rapport Store tab, and then from there, you'll see a blue Rapport Store link. That will take you to the assessment page, find the right one for you. They typically take about 10 to 15 minutes. Pretty inexpensive. Our basic assessments are less than $15, so definitely well worth your time and investment. Liz and I are both on LinkedIn, so look for us there. We certainly appreciate you spending time with us today. If you like what you're hearing so far, please leave us a review on the Apple Podcast app. And site used to be iTunes. Now they're calling themselves Apple Podcasts. Rebrand. We're also on Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play. So pretty much everywhere that you can find podcasts these days, we are available. So take us with you on your commute or wherever you happen to go. On our next podcast, we'll dive into a little bit more on the business end of things in terms of how personalities interact with others. We'll keep you in suspense until then because we don't want to let that topic out of the bag just quite yet. But for Liz Parker, this is Alex Swire-Clark saying thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Rapport Advantage podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Join the conversation on Facebook at the Rapport Advantage and follow us on Twitter at Rapport Podcast.